We are not willing to allow Adventism to be so narrowly defined.
How radical is this group going to be?
It is revolution, but it's not what they might think if they could come and see it.
It's a culture shift. It's a need for a culture shift.
When a community experiences crisis, leaders step forward with solutions. Last year, Michael Polite released a video calling for an Adventist revolution. Now, 6 months later, the Adventist Revolution will host their first event here in Indianapolis. At Zeal 19, we will see what the revolution wants.
Me and everyone else coming into this recognizes that we're about to be potentially part of a controversial thing. There are going to be people who don't want to understand.
Fear has never saved a marriage or a business. Fear has never gotten a woman ordained, and fear most certainly has never started a revolution.
Come on.
The institution as a whole and the hierarchy is getting away from what it actually means to truly build a kingdom.
We have a lot of callousness in Adventism, and we have a lot of disinterest in hearing other perspectives.
How do we go from a church that seems to be fading away? Who knows what God is going to do with this non-compliant stuff?
And I also want to suggest that you can't do that type of work unless you get angry.
We believe that the grief should lead to an appropriate anger, that we should not resign ourselves to simply grieving the dysfunction we see, but we need to allow the anger about that dysfunction to fuel us to do something about it.
No, not get angry and sin, but to be angry and sin not, just like Christ in the temple.
Throughout Zeal, 16 speakers presented short talks. For every minute of listening, attendees spent 1 minute in conversation, reacting in small groups to what they heard. During one session, Pastor Juan Labrador was invited to share his experience starting an independent church, a move that could be seen as a call to split from Seventh-day Adventism.
Is there a future in which Adventist revolution breaks away from the established Seventh-day Adventist Church?
It is not in our plan.
We believe in our foundational principles, and ultimately we understand that the original church, original Adventists, they were a movement.
We do desire to maintain independence, but that just simply means we don't want to be tied to a conference. We don't want to be tied necessarily to a specific union. We want to serve conferences. We want to serve unions.
There's a sense of frustration. There's a sense of anger. But at the end of the day, that's still your family, and you're going to do everything you can to let them know that they're loved, and that there's a space where we can grow together.
If I have all these problems with it, but then I'm not willing to stay and change it, then I can't really speak on the problems because I wasn't really trying to contribute to the solution.
We're interested in changing the culture of the church.
We are saying to ourselves, we think the institution can be rebranded and repackaged to better welcome in not only the unconventional and the young, but also the non-traditional and the old.
What do you think of the revolution that they're endorsing? Does it seem like something that you would support?
Well, we grew up in the 60s, so I guess there's a little bit of...
revolutionary in this?
Yes.
It is revolution, but it's not what they might think. If they could come and see it, they might be more comfortable with it.
The primary motivation is to revolutionize the cultural packaging of Seventh-day Adventism and not necessarily the theological framework of Seventh-day Adventism?
100%. It's a culture shift. It's a need for a culture shift.
Well, it started as a movement where I saw the video on Facebook, I believe.
I actually learned about it on Instagram. I realized, okay, I have to go, so I'm going to clear my schedule, make sure I'm here.
Why do you believe that this is the way to help reach and build bridges for Gen Y and Gen Z?
Reaching a generation is all about packaging. It's how you communicate a message. How can we meet a need? How can we speak into that deficit? And then maybe we will win the confidence and trust of members of those two generations.
We ascribe all these methods of how to reach them, right? Make your space cooler, whatever that is, but really the heart of it is listen to them and be clear that you want them.
Growing up, I didn't always see that, and I think that's what kind of made me feel like I was unconventional, and I didn't really have a space.
If you are an unconventional mover and shaker within Adventism, odds are you're pretty lonely.
Let me show you some things that you have not seen. Let me introduce you to some things you have not heard. And we're going to do it in a way that is not only attractive, but it causes intrigue and curiosity to be birthed.
For those in attendance, Zeal 19 seems to have successfully created a space for the unconventional. But the work of changing the status quo must take place beyond the walls of this event.
I think one of the ways that we're going to measure success is by seeing how people stay engaged with the movement and how they take what they have been learning here back to their own contexts.
I would say to any revolutionary, you're not alone. Seek other like-minded people. If you can't find anyone else, you can come to us.